So we've done the 12 best books of the year. Let's do the 12 worst. So hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be bringing to you the worst books that I read in 2023. These aren't necessarily books that came out in 2023, just ones that I picked up. And it feels so redundant to do this, but just in case, please take this disclaimer that if any of these books are your favourite books, if you are the author of any of these books, they just weren't for me. Okay, one of them is actually terrible. Okay, I don't know now, some of them are bad, okay? They're just bad. But no, in all seriousness, this is just my opinion. It's all good fun. It's all good fun. We're here for a good time. So I actually gave 8 books 1 star this year. At the current time of filming, I've read 186. So to give 8 of them 1 star feels pretty good. 2 were in a series, so I'm going to mention them as 1. And then I've finished off my list with some pretty abysmal 2-star reads. Some of these I don't even have majorly negative things to say. It just feels like they have made the worst list. So the book in the 12th spot is a 2-star read that I read in October, and that is We Played With Fire by Catherine Barter. This is a book about the Fox sisters who held seances with the dead, but had little clicky trips to make you believe that they were speaking to the dead. The Fox sisters were real in history, so I was interested to go into this book and see how they were portrayed. I found though, while reading this, I just didn't really connect with the story at all. It was kind of just passing me by and I wasn't taking it in. I'm really glad that I got to read it, and it definitely opened my interest into the Fox sisters and like historical supernatural elements. But yeah, it just wasn't really that captivating is the word I mean. Next up we have The Possible by Tara Alter-Brando. I read this in September and gave it 2 stars. This is like just badly written in my opinion. So this is a book about a young girl whose mother is in prison. She's in prison because she killed her son, being the main character's brother, as a baby. And it all kind of branches into a Carrie-esque story of whether our main character or the mother has telekinetic powers. I just genuinely felt like the writing was atrocious in this. Lots of sentences that didn't really quite flow, jumping around in different situations. Even the spacing on the page irritated me. So this one is just the writing. The story wasn't awful, but the writing was just pretty bad. See, I'm not gonna sit on these books for too long because we don't need to fill the world with negativity, but you need to know my opinion. So then we have Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. I read this one in July, and again, 2 stars. This one just really, I should have known going in. This is a thriller mystery story where our main character witnesses her son stab someone, and then she goes back in time day by day to figure out who her son stabbed and why and how she can stop it. I don't know whether I should read time travel books. I don't think that was the problem though. I didn't find the mystery too captivating whatsoever. One of the plot twists was so obvious that I didn't think it was supposed to be a plot twist. And yeah, I definitely read this with people at the time who enjoyed it and loved it and thought it was so exciting and interesting. But this did not do it for me at all. Like, I should have known. I should have known. Another one I should have known about is Rouge by Mona Awad, which I read in October and I am not a fan of. So I wanted this book because I read Bunny earlier this year, or last year, and didn't love it, but was interested by the story. Utterly confused by Mona Awad's writing, but thought I'll give another book a go. This cover looks so dark. I'd heard it had Egyptian mythology inspiration and I was down. Sadly, I think it was worse than Bunny. I've got no idea what happened in this book. Tom Cruise and some jellyfish were involved. I have yet to see a fantastic review of this book, so if any of you have read it and understand what happened and gave it a good review, please let me know. Please get in touch because I don't know what happened in this book. I'm still lost, and 2 stars because some of the vibes were creepy. The prologue I had to put down when I was reading it at night because it creeped me out, so that got it a star. But yeah, I got no idea what I read. And then the final 2-star spot has been filled by An Unwanted Inheritance by Imogen Clark, which I read in January, and it was actually my first book of the year. So to give this a spot on the worst books, It's pretty impressive. So this was a book that I think I had a personal gripe with that a lot of people wouldn't have. This is genuinely about a family who the patriarch of the family, a kind of interesting older man, little bit crazy, dies. And they find one of the daughters-in-law finds a stack of cash under his bed, or under a spare bed, and they have to decide what to do with it. The actual dynamics between the characters were interesting, which is why I gave it 2 stars and not 1. But my personal gripe with it is I am, if you're unaware, I say it because it's like I don't shut up about it. I'm a chartered accountant. And when I first read this book, it hadn't been long since I last did an accountancy exam, and the personal tax implications and the inheritance tax implications of this money were done so wrong that it boggled me on how it got published. Like, they found where this money had come from and they were like, yay, there's no inheritance tax issue. And I'm reading it like, yeah, there is. Or I've completely misunderstood inheritance tax, which I don't think so. So personally, I hated this because they went on a lot about whether to declare the money or not, and that was like a massive issue in this book. And then I personally felt like by the end of the book, the decision they made wasn't actually correct. So it bothered me. Okay, now we are in the 1-star books. So the first one I want to talk about is Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam. I only recently read this in November and it quickly made it onto the worst books of the year list. I really didn't like this book. I've heard from a lot of you who did like it that you like it for the reason I hated it. So this book is literally head empty, no vibe. No vibes? Head empty, just vibes. So we have a family who go to a holiday like Airbnb situation and they're having like a fantastic time, and then the owners of the house show up and tell them that they've been in New York and the world is ending and they need to like band together and just stay alive. And that's kind of it, is it? I think so. It's genuinely, I don't feel like you get any sort of good resolution out of this book. I don't think anything was overly creepy. I think it is just vibes, and those vibes didn't work for me. There's also a film of this which has just been released, like when I'm filming this video, and my colleague watched it last night and she's like, I cannot believe I sat through that. It was awful, and it just made me feel validated in my book opinion. Next up, we have The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, which I read in May. I took this book over to the US thinking I was gonna read it in a day or two while we were at the water park, just relax and read a book. I did start reading this as a teenager and I decided to DNF it, and that was before I knew what DNFing was. And then I found it in a charity shop and thought, no, the premise does sound really interesting. I need to stick with it some more and perhaps I'll like it. It took me a solid 5 days to read a very short book in a time where I was just relaxing and reading, and I just couldn't do it. I really didn't like this book. The actual murder side of it, so it's actually, right, what is it about, Chloe? It is about a young girl who gets murdered and then she is in heaven watching everybody move on and try to figure out what's happened and then just move on with their lives. And the actual murder part of it was really interesting, and I was like, you know, waiting with bated breath to see what happened to the murderer. The rest of it was just a bit naff and I wish I wouldn't have bothered. So now we have the 2 books in a series I want to talk about, and that is Girls with Razor Hearts and Girls with Rebel Souls by Suzanne Young, which I read in June. These are books 2 and 3 of the Girls with Sharp Sticks series. Girls with Sharp Sticks will forever be one of my favourite books of all time. I absolutely love it with my whole heart. But we're pretending it's a standalone now because these 2 books, I gave both the 1 star. I thought they were completely atrocious. Well, that's a big word for me. I didn't get anything redeeming out of them. So the first book is a lot about female empowerment and the place of a woman in society. It's done as a reason for the events in the books, but there is more of a story. Books 2 and 3 didn't have a story. They really didn't. I think some fires were set somewhere and that's all I can pull out of a story. Yeah, just really not good. I don't have anything redeeming to say about those actually. Now we've got a fun one. We've got a Wet Hot Allosaurus Summer by Lola Faust, which I read in September. I won't talk to you anymore about this one because I just put out a full video about why I hate this book. So it's got spot number 4 on the list and a whole video dedicated to it. In third place, a book that I read in August is Inside the Mind of Jeffrey Dahmer by Christopher Berry D. This was one of the Chloe's Crime Scene Corner picks this year, and I am so sorry to everyone that I made read this with me. This is the one I can kind of be a little bit more savage about, I think, because I hated it, and also the main character of this true crime non-fiction is a serial killer, so I can be a bit more brutal, I'm sure. So this is apparently a non-fiction book following the mind of Jeffrey Dahmer. It's not. It's an opportunity for Christopher Berry D to tell us everything he's done in his life with different serial killers and who he's interviewed. And I didn't find out anything new about Jeffrey Dahmer from this book. If someone could highlight a fact in this that is not in any other book, I would be very grateful. But I basically felt like at every opportunity, this author was like, yeah, when I interviewed so-and-so, a different serial killer, they said this about serial killing. When I saw this person, they said this. And I really wanted to dig deeper into Jeffrey Dahmer, but apparently the author didn't have that in mind. This book was awful. Speaking of awful, I know one person who is waiting to see this book on the list, and I think they'll be surprised it's not in the top spot. So in second position, we have I'll Always Be With You by Monica Murphy, which I read in July. This is a pretty terrible new adult romance. I genuinely hated this book. It is book number 4 in the Lancaster Prep series, and I kid you not, I have removed most of it from my mind. This is a romance where the two characters should definitely not be together, and not even because, you know, they're just different people or something. They don't work. Their characters do not exist as the same people. So we have, I don't even remember their names. I've literally wiped it from my mind. We have teenage girl, teenage boy. They meet in Paris. They're a little bit out there. They go and they have like a little make-out sesh somewhere, and they're like, we'll never see each other again. Then they meet again in school and are very reserved people. Our main character is quite feeble and timid, and then they disappear into broom closets and start saying, oh my god, broom closets? Am I American now? Okay, they go into like broom cupboards, oh my god, and they just start like being filthy, and it doesn't work. I know that people can have two different sides of them, but the shift in these characters just don't make sense to me. The actual relationship was so flawed. The story I just didn't enjoy at all, and yeah, I physically hated this book, like I really did. I have another book in this series to read, and I'm gonna give it a go. Maybe it'll make the worst books of 2024, we'll see. And finally, I genuinely think a lot of you will have forgotten this. There might be one person who remembers I read this year. My most hated book of 2023 was The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett. I hate saying this out loud because I have had very brief Twitter interactions with Janice Hallett for reviews of her other books. The Appeal and The Mysterious Case of the Appleton Angels are two of my favourite mystery thrillers of all time. Both of them are 4.5 or 5 stars, but The Twyford Code, Janice, what were you doing? I really didn't like this book. It is told in audio file format, and the audio files have been typed out with the accent and dialect of the speaker. And it's just so I hate reading it. I physically hated reading this book. Firstly, for that reason where you're reading it and thinking, oh my god, who is this guy talking to? What is this guy saying? I need to use my brain to figure it out. And it just kind of continued really weirdly, where it was a transcript, but then things in the background were being described, like the bench was over there, even though you knew he didn't say the bench was over there. Clearly I'm making that part up, but you get what I mean. And then the actual mystery just felt so weird. Like, I still can't even tell you what happened. Was there, like, this fish thing? I don't even know. I can't tell you what the Twyford Code is. I can just tell you that I hated every minute of reading it. So there we go. Hopefully that was a quick, short, snappy worst books of the year video. Let me know, do you share any of my opinions? Do you angrily disagree? I would love to argue / chat with you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.